Seeing none, then can I get a mover to approve it? Moved by Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Pierce. All in favor? Opposed? None. Declaration of pecuniary interest. I'll ask that you do so declared at the appropriate time. Delegations, petitions, presentations. We have two, and the first one would be Bob McLean, Leo Voss, and Lisa Young, and they're going to talk about the Children's Safety Village. And do they want to come up? Now, you guys have a PowerPoint as well? Yeah. Oh, it's ready to go.
So just switch the slides, we just hit the space bar?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for the opportunity of coming before you and talking a little bit about the Children's Safety Village of Brant. We're quite delighted. In early October, we were having a reception at the village for our volunteers, and Mayor Bailey appeared and talked to us. Leo Voss, our board president, who unfortunately is not able to be with us tonight. He's off in Florida playing golf. Some of us are called to do tough things. But Mayor Bailey talked to us about your plans for a piece of land, and knew obviously that we were in a situation of having to find a different home. But let me tell you a little bit about us first. The Children's Safety Village of Brant was an idea of the Kiwanis Club of Brantford in 1998 as a Millennium Project. Well, we really didn't know what we were about at that time, or we would never have thought we could do it in 2 years. We couldn't. We also decided we really weren't able to do it by ourselves as a club, so we incorporated as a not-for-profit organization and set up a board of directors. Many of us on the board are from Kiwanis, but we have a representative from the fire department, police department, and the boards of education working with us. The village had, looking for a piece of land. Mohawk College approached us and said they had a piece of land about 2 acres in size. It was scrub land at the time. They would be happy to have us as a partner with them. And for us, it was a great opportunity. We had a 20-year lease, the magnificent sum of $1 a year, and renewable at the end of 20 years. Before 20 years was up, there was a change of ownership. As you know, Mohawk College moved on. Private organization came in, talked to us, and said that they would be happy to have us as people working along with them, which we thought was going to be great. However, the plans change in business, and their plans changed, and they decided that where we are, they would like to do something else with that 2-acre property. So they told us that our lease ending this December 31st, 2021 would not be renewable. So as you can see, this is the village as it currently stands. The lower left corner is the education center, the green building, and the other buildings are ones put up by various organizations that have supported the village. The village is used for children in driving battery-operated Jeeps in grade 1 or bicycles in grade 3, but they're taught by police officers about rules of the road. The police department have this safety program within the curriculum, and they teach that with grades 1, 3, 5, and 7. The fire department deals with children in grades 2, 4, 6, and 8. And if you can see in the picture in the center, there's a cloudy room. We have what's called Sparky's apartment, and the children are in that apartment. There's a kitchen, and they see hazards in the kitchen, a bedroom and a bathroom. They go through and are experiencing different hazards there. And then we fill the room with theatrical fog. And they realize that unlike what they see in TV, where firefighters run through smoke and can see everything, in real life, you don't see it. So they learn some of the hazards there with a fire. They evacuate the room going through a window, down a few stairs, go along the hall to an area where is a simulated neighbor's house. They're there where they gather, and then there's a phone on the wall, they punch in 911, and that connects with a fake operator, and they go through what a person would be involved in with a fire. So these are the things that, as far as the education process is concerned, they learn. But we also do a number of other events.
Hi, Bob asked me to talk about the events. Makes sense because I plan them, and they are fantastic. Since I started working at the Safety Village, though, the kids have to work at our events. It's not just coming and seeing the fire trucks and the police. They have to earn safety certificates. So, and that's by practicing safety skills. So, like for Halloween in the village, we had 3,009 guests this year at Halloween in the village. And for the safety certificates there, we marked candy with little stickers, and we had 21 businesses all dressed up handing out candies to the kids. And the kids sit down with Brant County OPP and City of Brantford Police, and they are taught with the parents how to sort and look for tainted candy, and they have to pull out the ones with the little stickers. And that exercise, they earn safety certificates with their names on. For the Easter event, we had the identification kits that kids could complete with their parents, their fingerprints, their vital stats, that type of thing. Down here, you'll see our Brant County crew, Ken, with his auxiliary officers. That auxiliary officer holding the cotton candy was covered by the end of this. Her uniform was just covered. But yeah, and then we had our Easter egg hunt this year. Most notably, the only way children will see Sparky at any of our events is if Brant County Fire's there. Brant County Fire are the ones who are Sparky, and they're so excited to do it. So here, there's Sparky. There's Brant County Fire right there. I think that guy's coat says Urquhart on the back. And you'll see the people in the streets at the Safety Village. And then these are people waiting to come into the Safety Village for one of our events. And we have the auxiliary from both Brant County and Brantford Police that are there. And it's really important because the presence of having the police there, I've heard it from kids directly. And they have said that, you know, being able to come to the events and see the police officers, talk to them, get to know them, come to the Safety Village classes, makes them less fearful. Because if they don't have that opportunity, have that relationship, it goes to a fear-based model. They see their neighbor being arrested, mom being pulled over. All they see are these fear-based things. Well, not because of the Safety Village, which is great.
The programs and events that we ran this past year, we've had over 10,000 children, youths, have gone through the programs. We have 8,993 students who were registered for safety classes, and that included 1,170 safety patrollers that were trained at the beginning of the term. And then we have 1,000 special events children who earned safety certificates during our special events. So why are we moving? Well, as I've already explained, we don't have any choice. Our lease will not be renewed, and that means we have to look elsewhere. We've been looking at various opportunities. We spent some time with the city officials. We've looked at the Mohawk Lake project. Unfortunately, that's not going to be completed in time for us with our deadlines. So what is it that we're looking for? We're looking for a secure, long-term lease, convenient location for all schools with no increase in transportation costs, increased visibility. Where we are now on the grounds of Mohawk College, we're sort of off in a corner. If you drive by, you don't even see the village. We'd like to be somewhere where it can be seen. We have a need for occasional large-scale parking. When we run some of these Saturday events and get 2,000 or 3,000 people attending, and these are usually kids with parents and grandparents, we need large parking. It's great at Mohawk because nothing else much is going on Saturdays, so there's lots of places for people visiting us to park. We also need access to high-speed internet. Right now, where we are, we have fiber optics, and most of our training is done with the kids using computers. So all those things are very important to us. So we had a chance to look at the drawings of what you're proposing with the site here in Kingsville, and we had our architect take our specs, our drawings, and just insert it in that corner, the lower left corner. Ours, it's approximately 1.7 or 1.75 acres is our site. So ideally, it would be nice if we could just rent a few helicopters that could pick up everything from Elgin Street and lift it up and put it into a piece of property without any changes. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So we have to look at, can we move some of the buildings? Yes, some we can. Others we can't, which means we have to rebuild our education center, which is approximately 5,000 square feet right now. Our plans are to enlarge it a little bit. We've been in it now since 2005, and like many things of this, what we're in and what we're working with is different from what we had planned. But obviously, if we were in this location, and if there was a possibility, one possibility would be to have the buildings adjoin each other or connect, then there's a saving or possible saving. In some respects, it would be something that we could see taking a look at. But from our perspective at this point, there does seem to be some significant advantages. How does the community benefit? Well, increased overall use of the site, including your community hall. Partnership opportunities, decreased construction and maintenance costs, perhaps for us. Police and fire presence at the location meets all of our safety village requirements, and it could be a win-win cooperation to benefit all of the children who attend. And we think that's important. You know, we built this when we did because of, at that time, and I think still is, the accident rate in this area is higher than the provincial average. And the idea of having a safety village was that accident rate was the idea behind the safety village. There are about 17 of these villages in Ontario, all very similar. We pretty well lean on each other for ideas and things of that nature. And many of them are located on village or college grounds or municipal grounds. So essentially, that's where we are with it, folks, and we appreciate your giving some consideration to where we are.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask if there's any questions for the presenters at this time. Seeing that, oh, okay, Councillor Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Bob. The education building you mentioned, was 5,000 square feet. So you still want to build that at the new site? Is that correct? And also possibly use the community center?
Right now, we'd look at any possible combination of things that could accomplish what we'd like to accomplish. So any of those options would be what we'd consider. Certainly, there could be an option of combining the two or using part of the community hall for some of the things that we would need at a time that wasn't busy with the.
And how are there children at the Safety Village 5 days a week from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m.?
Roughly, they arrive 9:30, 10 o'clock. They're by a bus, usually a bus bringing two groups, one for fire training, one for police training. In the afternoon, another group, same thing, a bus, one for fire and one for police. And that's the extent of it for the day. So right now, Monday is for Six Nations, Tuesday is the county, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are by city police and fire.
So you do run 5 days a week?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from committee? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, and you've been to the site, you like the site, and you're being booted to the curb right now, December 2021.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you
very much. Okay, that is our first delegation. The second item we have under item 4 is a public hearing. And this is regarding an application for exemption from noise bylaw 185-00. And this is from Ron Murphy Contracting for land surrounded by Rest Acres Road, Powerline Road, Potters Road, and Highway 403. So at this point in the meeting, I'm going to open this up to the public, and I want to ask if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak to this noise exemption. Okay, I'm going to ask a second time. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this noise exemption request? And I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this noise bylaw exemption request? Okay, seeing none, I'll close this meeting off to the public, and I'll turn it over to committee and ask how they would like to dispose of the first delegation tonight. If I could get maybe a motion on the floor to receive and refer to staff. Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that, seeking a seconder, that we have staff look at, investigate this situation, and working with the Children's Safety Village. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay, and seconded by the mayor. Any discussion or questions on that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. 4B, I don't need a motion, but it's coming up in our staff report, CD 19-121. And this brings us to 5A, adoption of minutes from the previous meetings. Can I get a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes for both both meetings from October 7th, 5A and 5B? Councillor Ferrier, Councillor Gatward. Any omissions, errors, corrections, questions on any of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Takes us to item 6, any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through you to Michael, will you be giving us an update on the policing policing negotiations during your CAO update? And if not, could we get one now?
Mr. Chair, I can provide a quick update now. The detachment commander and I have met. We have scoped out, I think, what the process would look like. There is a budget item in the budget tomorrow as a decision package, and I think we would, the detachment commander and I would propose to start and form a bit of a working committee to develop the business case that would be presented to headquarters, kind of in conjunction as the budget gets approved. So hopefully that makes sense. And I think there's we also need a little bit of further advice from OPP headquarters on this, which we're waiting for.
Thanks, Michael. And supplementary question, when you get to the point of an agreed package for the new contract, will it come back to council for approval?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so I'm a bit, I believe that at the end of the day, it is council's decision to take on additional resources. Notwithstanding that, it's Police Services Board that essentially governs the police. So I think both the council and Police Services Board have to approve that business case before it goes off to headquarters. So I would assume it would come back to council, but the final approval is still, I'm not quite sure. So I think this will sort out over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Any other questions? Business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. This brings us to item 7. Now, on item 7, there are 8 consent items to be approved. 7A1 requires an action and an appointment, and we'll do that under other business. I'll ask for volunteers at that point. But does anybody want any of those removed for questions or to discussion separately? I'll ask again, does anybody want any of those removed? Because there's quite a few. Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion on the floor to approve? Councillor Ferrier, second by Councillor Pierce. Okay. Any questions? Keep going.
Just on 5, 6, 8, I have to look at my Roman numerals. For the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Advisory Committee appointments, I'm also on that. It's not listed here, but we made a motion previously. That's okay. We don't have to put it in the official sort of recommendation here because I was already appointed.
Can we
Just
make a note of
process.
that in the minutes? Because, yeah, you're right, you are in there, so, yeah, okay.
Okay,
So noted. Thank you. Okay, no other questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. That'll take us to 7.
David, or Chairman Miller, I just had a comment.
Yep, go ahead.
And I would, with 7A1, we have to select someone rather than put it off. I was going to say, why don't we just do it now?
Well, like I said, I'll bring, I want to get them all on the floor at the same time, but that's why I was going to bring it up under other business. See, we'll definitely pick someone.
Because I'm prepared to make a motion on a person.
Okay, that brings us to 7B, consent items to be received, and there are, now in this case, 6 items. Councillor Ferry. Does anybody want any of those removed? Okay, seeing none, or see nobody put up their hand, I'll ask for a motion from the floor to receive these items. Councillor House, second by Councillor Coleman. Any discussions, questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through you to staff, it's with regard to item 2, the amendments to the Building Code Act. I don't know whether we have a view on that from the county. I notice our chief building official is in the room. I don't know whether he would care to comment on that.
Well, we could ask him. I had the same thoughts when I was reading that, so. Andre, any thoughts on, I don't know if you've read the, what we're discussing right now, but it's regarding the proposed amendments to the Building Code Act. And the municipality of Prescott has some thoughts on it, and they shared them with us tonight, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The provincial government is asking for a consultation paper on how we deliver our services through the province for all the different municipalities. I will be presenting a small report to council in the December CDC, which will outline 3 specific items. There are a whole bunch of them. And the Ontario Building Officials Association with the large municipalities association will be responding together with that. And for now, that's all I have for now.
If you need an action item from us, you'll let us know.
Do I need an action item?
Well, no, I mean later in December when we see your report.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Andre. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's gone through. We're on the next page, page 5. Committee reports. There are none before us. So this takes us down to 9A, and there's this, we'll separate these items out, but the first one is community grants, policy, and allocation criteria. And I'm going to ask if we can get a mover to get that on the floor. Okay, we'll go with Councillor Pierce, seconded by Councillor Bell. Does anybody have any questions or discussions or comments on that? Councillor Coleman, because I know I do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do have some concerns with this. I think that if a committee is to be struck, it either be all of us or one counselor per each ward. And then that way it's fair right across. So I would make an amendment to that if that's, would,
Hold on to your amendment.
okay, I'll hold.
We won't vote on it until we get the amendment on the floor. Councillor Ferrier and then Councillor House.
Yeah, I would second that amendment. We've seen some times here and there where not having a representative from each ward on community services or I'm not on it, so I forget Public Works, has created some issues and knowledge gaps between some of the wards. So I would also support that, just because I think we all bring a flavor to those decision-making processes.
Thank you, Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are a little bit more about the structure of it. And so this is a temporary committee, an ad hoc committee, kind of, that like, does it change every year for every budget? Does it happen just for, a few weeks leading, or if there are budget questions throughout the year, how does that get funneled in? And then my other question is about how the recommendations go to council.
Okay. So we'll let, Robin, do you want to, I know the answer to this, but I'll let you speak to it because you're a little more elegant than I am.
So through you, Mr. Chair, it's an advisory committee, not an ad hoc committee. So that means it's not temporary, and new committee members would be appointed for the next term of council when that happens with the rest of the committee appointments. What else? What was your question? I'm
He was
sorry.
asking about how those recommendations get to
Okay.
council.
So after the committee makes the recommendations on the allocation of the grants, a report would come to council. A committee report would come to council for approval of those grants to be allocated. So at that time, council can either agree or not agree. They, at that point, can still change their recommendations.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through you to, I guess to Robin, since she's standing there. Have we agreed how much we will put aside for this grant?
Through you, Mr. Chair, do you mean the aggregate total?
Yeah, the total.
So that was already approved as part of the initial budget motion that was brought forward. So it's 381,000 and change, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Second question was, one of the categories for grants is emergency funding. And almost by its very nature, it's something that sort of crops up. You don't always have an emergency at the point where we're allocating money in January. So are we thinking about holding a contingency sum that we can then allocate through the year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, typically, council doesn't allocate the entire amount. They usually do leave a little bit for those types of emergency situations that come up throughout the year. And that is, again, at council's discretion to do that. There is also, if there's an emergency situation, people are welcome to still come to council and make a request for funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, all good questions. Hold on. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Ferrier, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, just wondering, because one of the things we did talk about previously through you, Mr. Chair, to Robin likely, was that not just emergency basis, but sometimes we just don't know. We basically have a system right now where, because it's the one time a year, folks kind of need to know that in advance, and sometimes things occur that are non-emergency, but, there are other models where we use quarterly systems or biannual systems so that the work is spread out, the funds are spread out over the year, as opposed to, well, let's hope around November what you need. Was there any thought given to a biannual or quarterly process?
So through you, Mr. Chair, what we did is we looked at what we have done historically. We looked at what other municipalities do. We looked at what the Brant Community Foundation did, and all of those were basically done on an annual basis. So we decided to proceed with the same basis, knowing that there are times throughout the year that people do come forward with a request that's outside of that annual process.
Okay, any other questions for Robin? Question, Councillor Galway?
Thank you. Yes, so the 381,000 includes everything, all the organizations, agencies that we give grants to. Like, is it high because of what we give to St. Joe's, for instance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe the St. Joe's money is included in that grant allocation. I believe that came forward as a decision package in prior years.
So that that's what we gave out last year was 381. Because it was 100,000 at one point, and then it went higher.
If I could ask Heather to come forward, she can probably clarify the exact amount a little bit better than I could.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The 381 did include the 100,000 last year for the hospice, as well as the 50,000 for crossing all bridges.
I know what you're saying, Councillor Galway. It seemed to be lower at one time, not that long ago, so, but it is what it is. But at the same time, it is a decision of council through the budget process, so. Any other questions for Robin while she's here? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go to Councillor Coleman, because I believe you have an amendment you want to put on the floor.
Thank you, excuse me, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make an amendment that it's either 5 councillors, 1 per ward, or all councillors.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to pick, could we go with the first?
I know it'll be the simple, 5.
Yeah, let's go with the first one, because I think that's a great, and I think Councillor Ferry said the same thing, but I think it's a good idea.
And I want to speak to it.
Okay, can I get a seconder for Councillor Coleman's amendment to go with 1 councillor per ward plus the mayor? And Councillor Goward, you're seconding that amendment? Okay, and Brian, you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the reason why I put either all or the 5 was, I'm afraid that the other all the other councillors that are not on this committee will not be happy when this report comes back and we're going to sit and debate the whole damn thing all over again. And that's my concern, why we make it all or none. And I think that's, I was elected to make decisions. And I agree with what Councillor Ferrier said about not on all committees, but I think that this committee seems to be this grants is a very personal thing among some councillors. And I think I'd rather see the whole debate at this table, banging it out one time, one night, or one afternoon, or whatever, and get it done with. Because I'm afraid somebody's gonna get left out or whatever, and then it's gonna come back and we're gonna sit and hash the thing all over again. That's my concerns, Mr. Chair.
And I don't want, Councillor Coleman, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, okay, I'm going to ask you to repeat that amendment, and then, like, just, you can't make it this or that, you have to make one. So which one are you making then?
I'm making it all.
Okay, so you're making a motion that instead of having the mayor and the 4 councillors, you would like
All councillors.
mayor and 10 councillors, which is, okay. And Councillor Goward, are you okay seconding that clarified amendment?
I'll second it.
Well, let me go back, because she did,
I am, Mr. Chair, if we have a special meeting to hammer out the grants, as Councillor Coleman indicated.
okay. Okay, we have that clarified. We'll go to you, John, and then we'll go to Councillor.
Yes, I prefer all. We were elected to make those decisions. And maybe because I've been here for a long time like Brian, so you take a half a day to do it. I mean, that's what we were elected to do. If you didn't, when you put your name on the ballot, you should have realized you're gonna have to spend time. And if it takes a half a day to just do grants, so be it, or an evening. So everyone needs to be involved, Brian, and I think you should make it all, not 5.
Yeah, no, the amendment is for all at this point. Okay, we'll go to Councillor House.
Right, and through you, Mr. Chair, I don't mind spending the time on it, but having us all involved, doesn't that just take us right back to where we were last year and defeats, basically wipes out the entire recommendation?
Is that a, is that a?
Question?
It could be seen as that way, but at the same time, I look at it and say, well, at least we got more, maybe more of a criteria, and that's how I see that. But, yeah, I see, there's still some elements. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I was just going to say. With the criteria set out as it is now, and it's there, it's in stone, and it's on a grading system. If you don't have A, B, or C, you score low in that thing. So I think that's going to take a lot of the challenges out of it. And I would agree, I think it's important that everybody is involved with that. So I'm kind of glad you asked them to redo that amendment to all rather than 5. So I will support an all.
Well, I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to put words
No.
in his mouth. Councillor LaFerrier.
Yeah, I actually think we worked fairly well last time, but the issue wasn't that we were all at the table. The issue was that we didn't have clear criteria, that some of the applications were very detailed, and some weren't very detailed, but not through fault of the person doing the application, just at the reading of the application. So I think this criteria is helpful. My question is will the criteria grading be made public, or is that something that'll just?
Okay, so not speaking to the amendment, you're speaking to the motion? Okay.
More
Can you
broadly.
Hold on to that
Sorry,
question.
yes, okay, no worries.
Councillor Bell, you have a question on the amendment?
No, it's a comment that I trust my ward mate, and I hope we all each trust our ward mates to make decisions that are in the best interest of the ward when it's necessary. I think the more people you have making decisions, the longer it takes to make decisions. I think if we're in the interest of efficiency, now we've got a system that allows us to grade the requests in a much finer way. I'd go with a smaller group rather than a larger group.
Okay, so you don't support the amendment. Okay, anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, so the amendment is, Heather, read it back, please.
That the community grants policy recommendation be amended to provide that the committee be comprised of all members of council, total of 11 members.
And all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, now we go back to the amended motion. Councillor Ferrier, you got a question about the
The grading.
grading.
So maybe it's the college professor in me, but is the grading rubric I know is now going to be available to the public. But will the grading for the individual applications be made available to the public? Should it be? I'm not really sure if it should be, because I don't want to, you know, in my day job, we don't release the students' grades publicly for a reason. But we do release them to those folks who make the decisions about whether
You're
it's
not
passed or
saying
not.
how we grade, but the
actual
final
grading.
grade that they get.
We'll be making our decision in large part now, based on the fulfillment of the criteria, and there's a grading piece to it in that criteria. Will those grades, essentially, for lack of a better term, be put in the public report? Should they be? I'm not sure.
It's a question. Robin, do you have an answer for
I'm not sure they shouldn't either.
that question?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the intent currently was to not publicize those after. We would publicize the rubric so that everybody has a good understanding of how the grading would work.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm
Okay,
more
and-
comfortable with that.
And that makes sense. Okay. Any other questions on the amended motion? Comments? See none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. That brings us to 9A2, and this is the fees and charges from Heather. I hope everyone read at least the preamble, because I thought she did a very good job of explaining how we could make changes later on. So can I get a motion on the floor to get this? Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Pierce. Any questions, comments? Councillor Bell.
Two things. I definitely support an early application of these fees and make our full necessary for our whole budgeting process. I have a question to Heather, I guess, is why some elements went up and some didn't. I'm just interested in knowing just how uniform across the board rise. I have one more question, but let me put it on the table.
Okay.
I can probably answer that.
Yeah, and I would have an answer for that, but again, we'll go to Heather. And
Second one is around the water and wastewater rates, and I've raised this before. I'm concerned that we have an imbalance end up paying a significant portion of their rate as a fixed rate. And I know I've had a lot of requests from people as to why that is, because it doesn't actually encourage conservation. It doesn't encourage people to manage their bills when, in fact, the majority of their bill is already fixed when it starts. So I would ask Heather whether it's possible to change the balance between fixed and variable to give us the same result.
Okay, well, let's go to Heather for the first question, and if you want to answer the second one, go ahead, or we can go to Rob if he's so willing. So, the first question was, why do some rates go up, some go down? Why didn't they all go up at the same?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we leave that partially at the discretion of the department or the directors, knowing first market, like where the market is driven. We do apply and give guidance as to an inflationary rate as to if they should increase. And then just to see, like, probably the rec programs are a little more flexible as to uptake, as to market value and stuff.
So reasonable rationale, yeah. That's okay.
Councillor Brad, well, just if I could speak from what I know we did in the past, I know when we were looking at the arena rates for ice rentals, we had to look at what was Norfolk charging in Waterford, Simcoe, what was Oxford charging, or what was Woodstock charging. We could, you know what I mean, we could not go much above them, right, because we would lose. So I do know that each department, they look at them. So the second question you had was regarding the wastewater and the water and the fixed rates versus the variable rates, and it doesn't encourage conservation, I think was your comment.
Do you want?
Through the chair to committee, and maybe Heather and I will tag team this answer. There's all kinds of different ways to have strategies for how to collect water and wastewater rates. And I've been through several, in my career, I've been through several rate studies and several different strategies to doing this. But at the end of the day, what we have to convince our residents is we're running a co-op here, and it has to be a sustainable co-op. So we're not making money off of them. We're making money for the system, which provides them good water and good sewer services. So the fact that if somebody pays less, somebody else has to pay more. So there's a certain fixed cost to running these systems. And I just noted in the report there that I believe the ratio here is water is higher volumetric. You've got it right there in your report. I can't remember now. It was 56. Yeah. Or wastewater actually is lower fixed rate, 44.56 for wastewater, and it's sort of switched for water. It's higher volumetric, or higher fixed rate and lower volumetric. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to go about this, but at the end of the day, we have to collect enough money to, and we don't run a large system here, 7,000 customers. So there is very high fixed rates for us to run this system.
Appreciate that. I mean, there is a point at which you draw a balance. I mean, you can have more fixed and less volumetric, or the other way around. Have we got any sense of alternatives to what you've proposed? Because if I just take the example that's in the document that Heather produced, for water, for the typical residents, you're using 20 cubic meters a month. The fixed rate...
What page are you on, so we can all
on
follow
page
on?
295, I think, on my document. I'm not sure what page it was in Heather's document. But it looks like the actual volumetric part of it is only 1/3 of the total. And for some people on limited incomes, that's really a challenge. And I just wonder whether we couldn't consider some reduction in the fixed rate, some increase in the volumetric rate, and then that would also encourage the conservation of water, which has an enormous knock-on impact to a county that has to invest many millions to provide water for the community.
My suggestion to committee and eventually the council would be, there are lots of ways to study this. Actually, the rate structure that we have with just a simple fixed rate and then a simple volumetric, actually many other municipalities is going in different ways now, where they have ways where the volumetrics actually go up. So for different customers, they're paying different rates. You have to watch when you're doing that for economic development, because your biggest customers with your biggest amounts of water usage, then they pay the highest rates. But I worked in a municipality where we had what they called the humpback, and you went up and it was something like 0 to 15 cubic meters, which catches most of the houses or the smaller volume houses. And then you went something like 15 to 45, and then up to 800, and then greater. But actually, in the last one, we actually dropped it down, because then you aren't penalizing your high water users, which is maybe 1 or 2% of your customers, with paying 50% of your entire rates, which could be the case in some systems. So I think that there's ways to look at this. I know the suggestion was in this report that we look actually at doing multi-year rates, a multi-year setting, say maybe next year in the middle of the council term, set the next 4 years of rates, so that you're setting it out there and having a business plan for how you go forward and how you're spending your capital and whatever. Before we did that, we certainly could do some analysis on how this has changed. But the changes you're suggesting are going to be huge changes for some people. And I think we could do analysis as to what the, your individual house pays and whatever. But every frontage, your average house has, 50 or 60 foot frontage. What they've got to remember is they got to pay their share of running the system, whether they're using water or not. And that's why the high fixed rate is there.
Part of me is driven by conservation. Part of me is driven by the fact we've got to spend huge amounts of money to provide water for the county. And here we have an opportunity to introduce a conservation mechanism that we're missing. And I would, I'd be looking forward to seeing that report. I like the idea of fixing the rates for a few years, but I think before we do that, I'd like to see that there aren't different ways that are more amenable to the majority of our residents and that actually promote conservation.
Councillor Bell, we'll leave it at that, because there's a fixed pie, and how you divvy it up between volume versus fixed, I think, is open for discussion. But if you want to investigate further and bring forward something later on, we'd certainly be amenable to that. Okay. Any other questions on the fees and charges? Councillor LaFerrier.
It's more of maybe a request to staff and maybe our communications staff, actually. But I said this last year, and I'll say it again this year. The vast majority of our fees are not increasing. Are not increasing. I mean, I'm halfway through and I count 54 up and 214 the same, right? Stabilizing. And I wish that when we're looking at reports like this that had lots and lots of data and information points that the average citizen's not going to go read through with a fine-tooth comb, that we maybe give a little cheat sheet for folks. Most of the increases are in things like funeral services and internment, but really as a municipality, not only are a lot of things, the vast majority of things not increasing, but also the vast majority of the increases are really small. And I think, we do those economic reports that are like infographics, and I'd love to see one about when we do this every year, looking at some of the dynamics for the public to consume this in a better way, so that they can actually see that there's not a lot going up, and the stuff that is going up is not by much. And that's also part of our fiscal planning and our fiscal responsibility to the public. But they're not going to read 42 pages of fee notes. You have to, and I apologize. But they don't have to, and they won't. So just a request maybe of staff or Melissa.
Okay. Yeah, share the good news story. Okay, thank you. Councillor Galbert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 297, Community Services Administration, it's the Brant E-Ride. The community fare to go somewhere is $3. The commuter fare is $1. And I did a little investigation before tonight's meeting, and we are proposing just over $130,000 in the budget for the taxpayers, and we're going to be using $190,000 for gas tax funding. So that totals $320,000 a year in funding for the Brant E-Ride program, which is, I believe, higher than what we've paid in the past. I think it's a good program, but I think the fees, the fares, are too low, and that we need to collect, more revenue. And I think the commuter fare should be raised to $2 at least. And the community fare, if you want to drive from Oakland to Brantford, it only costs $3 or or from Paris to Brantford, $3. We're going to be faced, I think, with the E-Ride people coming and saying, we need more money to cover. I'm not sure how they're being paid, but they're going to come asking for more money, in my opinion. So I think the fees, the revenue needs to be increased to the county and to the program. And so I would like to change those and make them higher. I'd be willing to listen to the community services people, because this came from your committee originally, correct?
Councillor Gatward, are you asking?
Well, I'd like to hear what comments, if anybody agrees.
Okay, hold on, we'll go to Michael, and then we'll go back to committee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, and just maybe some quick background. The fees that are proposed, the program is a subsidized program. It acknowledges that it runs at a loss, basically. And its design was to provide people who need transportation with an affordable transportation solution that was publicly funded. And I believe the fees, and Leslie can nod, came out of the consultant's report as being representative of what usually is charged in most municipalities for access to a transit system, noting that different municipalities have different transit systems. Some have fixed route bus systems, and others, like what we do, have an E-Ride based program. So our aim, the aim, and it came out of that original consultant's report, was to provide an affordable transit system that was reflective of what other municipalities provide to their citizens, and the fee is structured accordingly. So the question about how does E-Ride get paid, the providers, we pay them, and we'll offset some of our costs, but not all of them, with the money we collect from the users. So well, that's maybe just some background, Mr. Chair, to kind of clarify some of the concerns that were raised.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Councillor House, you were going to chime in?
I was just going to respond to Councillor Gatward's comment that if the fees for this particular service were to be reviewed, now isn't the time to do it. We are just soft launching this program and beginning to promote it, and people are beginning to try it. And if a review of the fees is warranted, I would say maybe a year from now, when we've had a chance to see how the public has adopted the program, the usage of the program, the costs, how they've translated. The timing would be quite negative right now to change the fees for this program at this time.
Okay, Councillor LaFerriere.
Also, part of the consultant's report, well, one, there's a contract, so fees aren't going to go up arbitrarily on the service provider side because we signed into a multi-year contract, so that worry that you have isn't valid in this case. But when we look at, Michael said it as operating at a loss, and while that's true, it's because of the economic benefit to the public more broadly, that whether it's our downtowns, whether it's doctors' fair, doctors being able to see more patients, whether it's social isolation. We had, 45 organizations and 30 businesses, including business organizations like Chambers of Commerce that represent hundreds of local businesses, say that this was actually really good for the economy locally. So when you look at the operating procedures, yes, you'll see a loss on the books. No public transit system operates without a loss in North America, except possibly one, but even then it's funky math. But when you look at it, the economic impact is also what we're trying to achieve, and the impact in terms of health costs, the impact in terms of people not taking a $90 cost to the public paramedic ride to go to the hospital, faking an illness so that they can go to the casino, right, and things like that. Like, there's lots of savings that occur, and this wasn't taken on lightly. If we start raising the rates too much, then you'll see a return to some of those behaviors, and those behaviors are more expensive socially, economically, and environmentally. One of the things we want to do is also get some cars off the road. So, yeah, now's not the right time. 6 weeks in, I don't think is, we can turn it all into an e-fleet, electronic vehicles, and raise the rates after 6 weeks. I don't think that's what we need to do right now.
Okay, any other discussions? Councillor Gatward, we can take an amendment now, but I'll leave it up to you, your decision. Or you can also amend it when it comes to council if you want to couch it in more data, or, you know what I mean? It's up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's not, I think it's more costly in the city to ride somewhere, and it's a lot shorter distance. But because of Councillor Howe's comments that it's a soft launch currently, and it may not be the right time to double the fees, I would tend to agree that we should wait until, wait for a year just to see how this program operates. But I think that these rates are too low and we really need to review them. And perhaps a year is a better time. Thank you.
And if we see a motion from you to look at it in 6 months, we'll know why, or something to that effect, so. Okay, like I say, if you want to amend it tonight, we would certainly entertain it, or if you want to wait till council, or you want to wait till a year review, we'll leave that in your hands. Any other discussions or comments on the fees and charges for 2020? Okay, see none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? None? Okay, corporate services, there's no update from Robin this evening. Are there any questions for her at this time? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through you to Robin. Robin, when will we get the first look at the 10-year financial plan? I think that's what the title is.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, we are in the process of fine-tuning it right now. Michael and I still need to sit down and go through it in detail. We were kind of trying to decide when we would present it to you. At one point, we were going to do it as part of the budget process, and then there was been discussions about doing it on its own because it is quite a lengthy document. So it should be coming forward to you within the next few weeks. Okay?
Thank you, Robin. Any other questions for Robin at this time? Okay, see none, thank you, and we'll hear from you tomorrow. Operations, Rob, do you have an update for us tonight? Okay, any questions for Rob? About winter maintenance or anything? So we did get your email later today. Okay, well, that'll take us to Community Safety and Protective Services. Cindy? Okay, any questions for Cindy at this time? They're all going to give us good presentations tomorrow, I know that. Development Services, and I didn't see Pam here this evening. Pam is off, okay. Rob, do you have an update on behalf of? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Trotter? Okay, thank you, Rob. And Strategic Initiatives, that brings us to Allison. We know where their energy's been spent lately, and that's on budget. Any questions for Allison at this time? Don't be afraid, we got some bright general managers sitting over there. Okay, brings us to item F, over the page 6. Let me just see here. Okay, we'll go through them one at a time. F1, and that's from Michael's office, annual review of council appointments and 2020 calendar. And you wanted to defer everything to the January meeting cycle. So can I get a motion on the floor for F1? Mayor Bailey, seconded by, okay, we'll go with Councillor McAlpine. Any questions or discussions on that one? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, item 2, and we don't need a motion on this or an action, but is there anybody that has a request for a Roma conference tonight? Go ahead.
So I attended a webinar today with the health minister and others, and they are going to be presenting at Roma on modernization of emergency medical services, et cetera. So I'm not going to be at Roma, but somebody from the paramedics committee, so I'm looking at Mayor Bailey or John, if either of you happen to be there, that might be something worth checking out, because they're going to be having an open forum essentially for paramedic services and others. So just to put that on their agenda potentially.
Okay. Councillor Gatward.
Are we going to continue to lobby the Minister of Transportation regarding the Bishopsgate Road interchange, or is that
Is
off
it-
the table, or are we still trying to move that project forward?
Yes, and I do remember the letter from the minister saying we're 100% responsible. Michael, is there any purpose, do you think, to going back there? Or asking to go back there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I continue to believe that a provincial contribution to that project is required for it to become feasible and affordable for the municipality. We don't have it currently in our 10-year budget forecast, but it will be, I believe, part of the financial plan. But I think the thoughts historically is that you can never waste time by getting in front of a minister with a message. So I would encourage it, Mr. Chair.
And I will leave that if you wish to make that a motion. Does anybody have anything? Okay, don't forget, we all sit on different committees. We sit on the health unit, we sit on John Noble, we sit on GRCA, so we can also ask for a meeting on behalf of those organizations as well. So if I don't see any from you tonight, that's fine. I think we got till the end of this month at council, right, Heather? So if you can think of something between now and then, sometimes you're driving home and you say, oh, we should have done that. So, and I know some years I have 3, and other years, like tonight, I draw a blank, so. Okay, we'll move on from that. We'll move on to F3, and that's the Brant Community Health Hub conceptual design. And there is a recommendation there, and I'll ask the committee, how would they like to deal with that? Councillor Wheat moves it, seconded by Councillor Bell. Michael, did you want to speak to that at all?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, first of all, I'll just note that Mike Trussell from Edge Architects and Brooke Hayward from BME are both here this evening. They can provide or they can certainly answer any questions that I can't answer. I believe the report is fairly straightforward. There is a conceptual design that's laid out in the report. That design has been developed in conjunction with a partner group that council, I think, unofficially recognized in an earlier report, being all of the partners in the project, as well as Mayor Bailey and Councillor Bell. We've sat down, I think, 5 or 6 times over the last 6 months, had very productive discussions, gone through some design iterations, and come up with this final design. I think we believe, certainly at the staff level, that it's a very a very well-designed facility that's going to serve its need very, very well. It's going to be a very suitable addition to that area, and we think it'll become the anchor of what will develop into a very impressive commercial district in that area, commercial/institutional district. So, again, the plans are there, and at this point, we would be seeking council's approval, noting that the business case still appears to be holding, that we will have a facility with a small annual profit. So we'd be seeking council's approval for the conceptual designs and authorizing us to go to working drawings and tendering. So that's my comments, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions, as well as our other team members here.
Yeah, we definitely have some questions. I'll go around the table. We'll start with you, John. Councillor McAlpine? Go ahead. We'll take comments and questions as we go.
These, so I was involved with the creation of the Grand River Community Health Center in Brantford, and these types of buildings are transformational for communities in positive ways. They get ahead of so many social issues, medical issues. I have full-throated support for this, and I know a lot of people around the council table have worked long and hard, and as well as people in the community, on making this reality. It looks great. I can't wait to support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor House?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I apologize if almost a year in, this is a rookie question. But on the fundraising side of a building that looks like it's ultimately going to be profitable, I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to how that works, or how it's worked in other projects, and just how far we go in fundraising, and how the narrative of it works when it, in the end of the day, it looks like it's going to be show a profit. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I think it's important to remember that there is also some community facility in this building. It's not strictly to be serving a for-profit or even community enterprises and partners. So there's also some community. There's going to be a health, what are we calling that, the health lobby, health gallery, and there's going to be a community room in it, and it's going to provide a range of services. So it's still an altruistic enterprise, although we do hope that it will end up generating a small profit. So, I mean, I think it's several projects that I can think of, community centers, arenas, all generate revenues, and yet they all still are successful for fundraising. So there's a grassroots group that's been involved with this for a long time. It's kind of anchored by the family health team group and some of the doctors, and they are ready, willing, and able to start fundraising. I think these projects are desirable for the community, and they are, I think, easy to fundraise for. So hopefully that answers the question, and I don't know whether Brooke has anything else to add to that, if she wants to come to the front, if she does. Brooke, you want to come to the front, sorry?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So just to add to that, I think Michael's already addressed the most of it, but there is not-for-profit groups in here. And without the fundraising component, quite frankly, we wouldn't be able to offer the rates that we're going to these groups. So the fundraising really allows for that. If we don't achieve that, we will have to increase the rents, because at the end of the day, the goal is to really break even. I mean, you want to see a little bit of a profit for unforeseens into the future, so that's an important component. But I think if you look at the second floor, the bulk of it really is not-for-profit groups, and it's really providing a home for those groups.
Thank you, that does help me understand the situation.
No, that was actually a good question. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thoroughly delighted, as people would appreciate. I stood where Brooke is now standing probably 3 years ago, and I presented some sense of what community health hub might be. I think I frightened the council to death that day when I was talking about 75,000 square feet, maybe. As it is, it's 42,000 square feet. It's not a million miles away from it. But I really do want to thank the county and the county staff for working this agenda, because without them, I don't think we'd have moved as we have moved. I think we're actually in a tremendous place now. Where we were 3 years ago, we were thinking the Willett was about to close, the doctors had nowhere to go, and now we're presenting with a Willett that's actually growing and taking life again, and we're putting in a facility that will allow us to get the number of doctors we need in this county to accommodate the growth that we see. And as I think Mark said, it's going to be transformational for this area and the town of Paris. I had one technical question. When I looked through the budget documents, I didn't see anything about funding in there. So are we planning to go the route of transferring the account to BME?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the budget for this was approved in last year's budget, so it remains approved, and it'll be approved until such time as we either amend it or take it away. So in terms of I think the BME business case, as my report suggested, I think that business case would be prepared after we go to tender, and that's when BME can really make a case on whether it's a for-profit enterprise that it can take on or not. So I think that's a decision down the road. But right now, it's still a county build. It's still managed by the county with some project management delivered by BME. So.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Yeah, this is, it's fantastic news. And when you see the pictures, the concept drawings of what this thing is going to be like, it's going to be spectacular. My only question here is, it's around 42,000 square feet. Obviously, I can see potential as to going into some of the parking spaces for expansion. I'm looking down the road. This is going to give us enough room for a while, but I have a feeling this thing is just going to be better than we think it is, and it's just going to expand. Do we feel that we've left enough property other than having to go into parking spaces to expand?
Is there room for future expansion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have taken a look at the entire area, and we're looking bigger picture rather than just this site. There is the community services building, and the future's unclear on that building. There is opportunity for sharing of the parking lots that are other municipal parking lots in the area, including the fire station. So there is growth opportunities in the area.
Okay, that's great. And then just a final comment on it. To me, this is a service that we need, and it's a very important service that we're going to get. And the icing on the whole thing is if it makes a bit of a profit, that's that's fantastic work by everybody, but I don't think the main goal is to make a profit off it. The main goal is to supply a service, and I think this is gonna do it fabulously. Thank you.
Mayor Bailey, do you want to?
Well, I'm very excited about the project. I've been involved since the very beginning, and I'm very excited. I wish we could start digging a hole tomorrow. I think it's certainly what we need to do. And I sit on the strategic planning committee for the Brantford General Hospital too, and I know that even doing that strategic plan with the Brantford General Hospital, knowing that I have this in my back pocket, along with the doctors like Dr. McDonald, who's absolutely dedicated to the community, we're in good shape. So I fully support it and wish we could even move faster on it.
Okay, Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A good project. I support it. And it's not just for the town of Paris, it's for the county of Brant. Did you hear that? County of Brant.
But just a comment, if I may, Mr. Chair. It is called the Brant Community Health Care.
Thank you.
And it's called that, I would like to say, because of Councillor Coleman, but I'm sure staff was listening. Councillor Gallard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have 3 quick questions. How many doctors have we secured that have become part of this project? Number 2, how close is the back corner of the building to the steep bank? And 3, excuse me, have we done any soil testing on site? Because down the road at Walnut Street, when they dug into the bank and found it was very sandy and stony, the soils sort of caved, and there was a lot of issues on that site where somebody did something they shouldn't have. And I think the soils, when you go along Willow Street, you look up and you can see how stony and sandy they are. Has any testing been done?
Okay.
So that this site can hold that building?
Okay, so we'll start on the first one. How many doctors do we think we'll get?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's 4 doctors currently through the Primacare that are locating here, but the capacity is built in for a minimum of 7. We hope for more. So the goal is to really recruit doctors to the community. We know that the community is growing, and this is going to provide the state-of-the-art facility that's required in order to attract new doctors to the community. That's really one of the primary goals of this facility to begin with.
Okay, thank you. How close is it to the embankment?
There's a property owned by the county to the west of the building that isn't being used, and it isn't shown in the site plan. Mike, you can probably speak a little bit more fully to that question, but we're very safe. We've done lots of tests. To answer the next question, the soil tests have been done. There's been core sampling done on that site. The footings and the building will be designed to withstand the test of time.
I think that kind of answers your second question. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. To answer your second question, the building, unfortunately, we aren't showing the adjacent property between what we're considering our site and the embankment, which is also county-owned land. It may look from that picture that the corner is relatively close to the boundary. We're actually something like 60 feet away from the embankment, so we're set well back. And as Brooke already mentioned, there's been significant geotechnical testing of the site, a number of boreholes, and test pits dug to confirm the soils conditions are suitable for this building.
Okay.
And those have been reviewed and confirmed by our structural engineer on the project.
And that was 60 feet, you said 60?
It's 50 to 60 feet, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Seeing none, go ahead.
If I could just use this as an opportunity, I'd like to,
Pass out your business card.
I've had the pleasure to meet some here tonight, Mayor Bailey, Councillor Bell. This is my first time meeting with some others. Let me say, it's been an absolute pleasure to work on this incredibly important building. I've met so many good people along the way who will be finding a home in the building, and working with Brooke and Michael and staff here. Can't say enough good things about the people here in Brant, so thank you.
I'll just reiterate what Councilor Gabler said, if you could turn your mic off too. What she talks about the soil, yeah, we've had some pretty bad experience with some of the soil in that area, so do double check those results. I wanted to ask you guys, because, you know, I like this stuff, is tell me about the, you talked about solar panels. Tell me about what other energy efficient measures you plan on doing.
Do you want to speak to that, Mike?
Sure. Great question. There are a number of sustainable design initiatives being built into the project, both at the level of the site design and building design. The site, as you can see from the plan, has a sidewalk that really runs right through the middle of the site, from the street to the front door. The entire parking lot is going to be designed to slope towards that center area, where we will be treating the landscaped areas as a bioswale for on-site filtering of runoff water as a low-impact design strategy, rather than putting it into the municipal sewer system, which has some challenges in this area.
Yep.
We are incorporating passive solar strategies, including shading of large window areas. You can see there's some a mix of different size of windows, but in the larger curtain wall areas, we're incorporating both vertical and horizontal sunshades to reduce energy loads for electric lighting. We are planning to have solar panels on the south portion of the roof. There's a small vegetated roof area, which, while it may not directly necessarily, there's debates about whether that will reduce energy consumption. Certainly, it's a nice feature, a natural feature on a building where we're trying to, you know, tie together ideas of environment and built structure. And what else? I think there's more.
If I could just add to that, just sticking to some of the core sustainability goals of the County of Brant and BME, this is going to be a healthy building, and that people are coming here to get healthier. So it was really critical to us when we were looking at the design of the building to make the building itself healthy. That's a goal that we've been talking about since day one as we start to look into some of the design elements that we can take into consideration when building this building. The trail is so close as well, so when you walk out the health gallery, we're going to incorporate an opportunity to connect to the trail, encouraging people to walk to work, run to work, people to use that trail system to get to their doctor's appointments as well.
A few last that come to mind, which really I think all buildings should have at this point, but there's plans for electric vehicle charging stations, really well insulated building envelope, which is about the best thing you can do for keeping your heating and cooling demands down. Good quality windows, simple things that actually go a long way.
Okay, I appreciate that. And someday we'll power it through a hydroelectric dam here in Paris, right, Brooke?
That's right,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
You hear that, Mike? It's going to be energy efficient, so. Guys, thank you very much. You can have a
Thank
seat.
you.
See no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? None? Okay, thank you. This brings us to item 4, and that's the County of Brant Public Library Main Branch. The request is before, so I'm going to get that on the floor, if I could. Moved by Councillor Wheat, second by Councillor Pierce. Does anybody wish Michael to speak to it? I thought it was straightforward, but maybe I could be off base on that. Councillor Ferry?
I just have one question, and it's related to the potential, and it says potential parking structure. We just went through a downtown master plan. The most controversial element of it was a parking structure across the street. I'm just wondering, and I'm supportive of this proposal, by the way, but because we've spent a lot of time and communicative capital on discussing the parking structure potentialities for the other side of the street, we're not looking at having 2 parking structures, it would seem. So maybe if you could discuss and talk to us about how this fits or does not with the downtown master plan, the potentialities of this parking structure, because we did spend a lot of time. I know I've talked to a lot of folks who have were against it, now they're for it. I've talked to folks who are still against it. It's controversial, and now it seems like it may not happen. Positives and negatives to that, especially since we all just went through.
Sorry, Mark, for against the parking garage, you mean?
So in the downtown master plan, we had detail, well, I shouldn't say detail, but we had schematics essentially for a parking structure.
Yes.
And it was the most controversial part of the downtown master
Okay,
plan.
okay, that's what, you're not referring to the library, but you're referring to the parking structure.
Now the
at this point.
library is going, it looks like we'll have the potential parking structure. And I want to talk about how this interacts with the downtown master plan that we spent a lot of time developing and explaining to folks positive and negatives about a parking structure right across the street. I imagine we're not doing two, and I want to get that on the record, but how those dynamics work now that it may be somewhere else.
Okay. Michael, can you connect some of these dots for us?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, I'll give it a try anyways. And so to clarify, we're not proposing another parking structure. I think we're proposing that as a community hub, it would be efficient and intelligent to attach the parking structure to the community hub that's being broadly discussed in the report. I think it's important to remember that the master plan was primarily a streetscaping plan, and that was also assigned to address parking. And we proposed the best way we can address parking was with a parking garage. And we proposed a conceptual, I think I would agree, a conceptual but as yet fully undetermined, or not yet fully determined location being this lot here, right behind our building here. But I mean, it was very much a conceptual location, just to say, we can't house a parking garage here. We've got a lot. We've got more than one lot, actually. So, but again, I think it's important to remember that our solution to parking through the master plan was a structure, and it didn't actually get into a full design of a structure. It just made a proposal. So, I think that structure design could change locations quite easily, and we're proposing that there may be some opportunities to link the parking structure that we've conceived of in the master plan to the community hub that's being proposed in this report, which would house the library and possibly a number of other activities.
So would the process that we described in the downtown master plan about the parking structure, community input, lots of, greenings, potentially solar panels, the front floor potentially being public space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the big piece was community input previous to this, because I imagine people on West River are going to have a strong opinion about this, and they weren't expecting to have a strong opinion about the parking structure. And I'm just wondering, does it still meet the size requirements to help with the basic parking need?
Mr. and through you, not sure. And I think that's why what the recommendation is proposing is to come back with a concept. We've other than having staff do a very, very basic site design to show that, well, we've probably got the footprint. These are all unknowns. But again, I think what we need from council, are you interested in this concept? And if so, we can go away and we can flush exactly some of those questions out in that design concept that we could bring back. We could acquire the services of somebody like the gentleman that just talked here, who could help us out with some of those aspects, and rather than lay people like me. But so again, I think that what we're seeking is kind of approval in principle of the concept, and then we can come back with something a little more detailed.
In those details, can statistics about potential cost savings by combining these two builds be in there? Because we were looking at potentially $6 to $9 million on a parking structure. If we're combining it with a community hub, may some of those construction costs come down? We're having one build instead of two. Again, if any of that information can be part of what's being fleshed out, I think that would go a great length to having the most informed citizenry that we can.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I think that, the other thing, and it's noted in the report, but we would obviously be doing quite a bit of further public consultation on this, which I think we can continue to have that productive dialogue with our community about the downtown in general and about this project specifically. So,
I'll go to Councillor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple things on this. I guess I got to back up a little bit to when the library came to us, and we're going to back up even more when we were under the understanding that Sillaps was going to be the proposed site of this. The library board came to us and said, you know what, we've met as a group. We feel now we've got 28 Mechanic Street in there. We feel that will now be our preferred site. I know we had discussions about potentially the possibility of the first floor of the parking garage that we were parkade out here, that type of thing. To be honest, and I'll be totally transparent here, I wasn't too happy when the library board come up and changed their preferred site. I guess after reading this, I guess I need to thank the library board for doing that, in the sense that it's opened up a possibility here that could be a pretty magnificent thing. You know, in becoming a community hub, you know, the library, you know, with their 21 to 25,000 square feet, whatever it is in there, but also, you know, potential museum, potential, you know, spot for seniors, a spot for youth, a community room. I think that just the possibilities are endless here. But what I want to understand here, and reading through this report, I think I understand that. So this will be a county facility that will house these different, like library, museum, that sort of thing. I just want to be clear that it will be a county facility. Is that a fair statement?
That's completely my understanding from the report. Michael, is that correct? Did we read the report correctly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that would be my assumption, is that obviously it's going to have it's going to have a number of components.
Yeah.
And it would be I mean, it's going to be paid for by the county, and I would assume built by the county.
Okay.
With input from the partners, including the Brant County Public Library and any other partners that we eventually, through, I think, the next phase of this process, determine would be appropriate in the facility, and then the potential of a parking structure as well.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing the next report.
Councillor Wheat?
Yes, in response to, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Pierce, it is the Brant County Library. This is the Paris branch of the Brant County Library System. It's always been the Brant County Library System. This just happens to be the Paris branch.
Okay, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll let you come back to that one. I think it's a great idea. I think it's combining these functions in this location makes an awful lot of sense. And as Councillor Ferrier said, you know, it was a contentious issue in the master plan to put the parking garage where we had originally cited it. I hope we keep the same thoughts about how to make that parking garage as we did in the master plan. A comment on the picture that you put in the documents that we got. It looks like the house next to the police station has been resurrected. There is a piece of land there that actually adds to the amount of available land that we can build on. It's quite a sizable chunk of land where the police currently do their parking to the west of the current police station. So I think it's a huge piece of land that we can make really good purpose for. I think the Paris seniors will be delighted because not only are they going to go here, but they're also going to go to the Lawn Bowling Club. They're going to be swamped with opportunities. But I think it's great that we're providing this kind of facility. And I think we need to spend a little bit more time just thinking about, indeed, just how much we can make of this. It's a great opportunity. Well done.
So you had a question about the building beside it? Yes.
No, just a comment that the building to the west of the potential community hub that's shown on page 395 in my book, actually it shows there's a building there. It's not. There's a car park. So we've actually got more space than would apparently be the case here.
My mistake. Yeah.
That's okay. We'll let that one slide. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm very supportive of this entire report, and I want to thank everyone involved in coming up with this solution and grouping the parking solution in with this. I think is a great strategic move. One of the things that to Councillor Laferrier's point, one of the things that I think concerned people about the parking structure being here was picturing a 3 or 4 story building with an alley running behind it. In this scenario, you may end up with a parking structure that's not necessarily so tall. You've got the opportunity for vehicles to come in one street and exit a different street. Yep. And that's a real plus from a design perspective. And for people who are just possibly seeing that concept for the first time, I think it's a pretty smart solution and good for our community. And I think the whole community hub is going to be great. So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Goward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 15 to 20,000 square feet that's mentioned in here for the library, I understand that. They currently have around 15,000 and it's not as functional and usable as a new space would be. The current detachment takes up 8,300. So if we built a two-story, 20,000 square foot build or 25,000 square foot build, there would be still room for parking. But I'm questioning whether there would be enough room for a youth center, a senior center, and all the things that are mentioned in here. Right now, I think the youth, do they not meet with Parks and Rec staff over at Silaps in the gym? And that's quite a big room. So where are you going to find that space in the library when they want, well, originally they said they wanted 25,000 and they looked at different locations. So is there enough room to put all these ideas into that 20,000 square foot building? Unless they're going to share, like seniors are going to use the same room as the youth, and the museum at the Silaps takes up a big space, and I think they want more room. So where are we going to put a third floor on and let them, like, I just don't think there's enough room. The community hub is a great idea, but there was probably more room over at Silaps to do all these things, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I think it's
So
nice to keep the library downtown. I think that's a good idea.
So you're asking if there's enough room for all these things, but I think you're putting the horse before the cart, because I'm not sure if what's going there has been decided, but Michael, do you want to try and take a
That's
stab at
just
the
my
question?
take on it. That's all I wanted to say.
And through you, Mr. Chair, those are good points, and I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know whether the facility would be big enough to accommodate all of those uses. I listed those uses as potential uses that we've identified as needing homes. And it was noted, some of them do have kind of temporary homes right now, some of them have semi-permanent homes, some of them don't have homes. Some of them have homes now that they might not have homes in a few years. So, I think at this point, we know there's lots of need for a facility like this. We know we've got a good piece of land to build it. And the next stage of this would be to flush out what would be the best group of potential partners or uses in that hub facility in the downtown, and what would it look like? And again, that's really for a future discussions.
Okay. Back to you, Councillor Wheat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A key word there that our CAO just used was potential. The initial driver here was a spot for a branch of the Paris Library. That's the start. By having extra floor space, that gives you the potential for other things. Will you be able to fit everything in there? Probably not. But let's wait and see. That'll all come out after the building is built. The key word there is there's potential to do other things. Let's move this forward.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through you to Michael, just a question on timing. What sort of time frame do you envisage this to happen in? Actually, remember the parking garage was the first phase, I think, of the original downtown master plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I haven't given considerable thought to timing. I would see, I mean, clearly we're not going to build this thing next year, but I think it would be quite achievable to maybe start building it the year after. I think there's quite a bit of planning to do on this, and there's obviously a lot of partnerships to make happen. So I would see at earliest a 2021 start on the build with a 2022 or kind of finish, something along those timelines, not unlike the health hub, which is really a full year and a bit build. So
But that makes a lot of sense because the police building becomes vacant effectively in the spring of next year. So some demolition and then into construction in the next year. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the vote. I'll make a comment, and it's along the timing. There isn't any in the recommendation, and I actually think that's a good thing, because it's gonna be a big project. We want it to be a great project, and sometimes it takes a little bit of thought and planning to do that. So I'd rather get the plan right and before we execute, so. See no further discussion. Councillor Wheat?
Just one further comment. As a member of the library board, I would like to see this just about completed before my term on council is finished, and that's 2022. It won't happen overnight. It won't happen tomorrow. These things take time. There's a process. And for personal satisfaction, I'd like to see it almost done by the time I'm off of council. That's 2022.
Is that an amendment, Councillor Wheat? No, just. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None. Okay, that takes us to our CAO's update. Michael,
I do have a short update this evening,
Is there
Mr.
anything you
Chair.
haven't touched on so far?
Just two items, Mr. Chair. First of all, the budget does start tomorrow, and I've got some extensive opening comments, but I think Councillor Bell already took one of them from me because he asked about the status of the financial plan, so I'll scrap that piece. But so I think we've got a good day planned. Robin and the finance staff have worked hard on the budget this year, and I think we're going to have an interesting discussion tomorrow and next week as well. I just wanted to also mention this morning was our last meeting of the year of our Emergency Management Program Committee. It's a committee that meets 4 times a year. It's comprised of several staff members. I'm the chair, and Councillor Pierce is council's appointee, I think from a decision that council made earlier, or I think late last year. We have checked off all of the boxes for Emergency Management Ontario's compliance list for our emergency management program. So I think that's a real positive thing. It's something that's always been very important to me to ensure that our organization is ready for emergencies. And I think we've come a long way in the last few years, and I think we've got a long way to go, but we're moving in the right direction. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Is there any questions for Michael at this time? Okay, seeing none. Sorry, Joe?
It's just a comment. Recently, we had a communications come out from our communications staff regarding being prepared for a 72-hour emergency. And I thought that was excellent information. I hope that the expositor will pick it up and publish it, because our residents need to be prepared. And if they don't, can the county consider publishing it? Let's just throw that out there.
Where would we publish it?
I'm talking about the newspaper.
Well, we could, I guess, the newspaper gets these media releases. It's up to them, I think. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it's worth noting, as part of our emergency management program, we've been doing regular releases on emergency information for the public. It's actually one of the check boxes that I talked about. And so that was just one of them. There's been several this year about CO2 detectors and about, during the summertime, outdoor fires. So there has been a great, and I give our communications group and our emergency management coordinator, Kent Potriff, a lot of credit for working very well together to develop that program of releases. So those releases go through a whole variety of media outlets. They are released to all the newspapers. But if council wanted to specifically, add one of those, to take out an ad for one of those, we could do that if council directed us to.
I guess that's the route we'd have to go if they didn't carry the story, and obviously they don't carry every story. We'd have to go the route of an ad.
And maybe it would be less expensive to put a notice in everyone's tax bill in February.
Okay.
Just an idea to get the word out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I know it was on the county website, and it was sent out to everybody as well. in regards to the go bag and stuff like that. And just a little comment, if I could, we all learned at the meeting this morning that our CAO in fact has his go bag in the car, so he is ready to go.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Michael? Okay, see none. Thank you, Michael. That brings us to communications. I didn't see any listed. Matters referred by council, again, I don't see any listed, and there's only one, and nobody mentioned other business at the beginning, and I do have the one. And that's the appointment of a committee member or council member to the, which one were we?
Ontario 55 plus games.
Yes, sorry, I'm on the wrong page, yeah. So if you look on your agenda to 7A1, yeah, the 2021 Ontario 55 plus games, that's the report from Donna Clements. Is there anybody that would like to sit on the games organizing committee?
I have a nomination.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Councillor Pierce. He carries experience. He was our council rep for the Paralympics that we had 3 years ago, and he takes that experience with him.
Okay, Councilor Pierce, you had your hand raised. But first of all, would you be willing to stand for appointment? Okay. And did you want to nominate someone, or did you want to, you're volunteering? Okay. Councilor House?
Councillor Weeks' motion.
Yeah, we don't actually need a seconder for when we're nominating. but
Okay.
I appreciate the endorsement. Councilor Pierce again?
If I could, Mr. Chair, just very quickly, the first meeting was last week of this, and with the Parasport Games a few years back, we had Russell Press from the county and Donna Clement from the city. They were amazing teamwork, and they did a fantastic job. Now we've got them both on the county side, and we've also got we've got the support from the city as well. What was really interesting in that meeting is, even though it was the very first meeting, they had representatives there from the Ontario Seniors OSG, Ontario Seniors Sports Association. I believe that's it. Sorry for the acronym there. And they were very, very impressed at how where we were already on this, being the very first meeting, how organized they were, how they had everything in line and in check, and it was kind of a really feel-good moment for two people to be there the first time in a room with everybody that was involved there, and state that they haven't seen anything that has been that organized so quickly. So it was kind of neat to see. I'd be happy to be on there.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none? Okay, so I'll get a mover on the floor then to nominate Councillor Pierce. And now we need a seconder. We'll get Councillor House. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, and Councillor Pierce, I think we made a good choice, and don't let us down. Okay.
For the record, though, Mr. Chair, even though it's plus 55, I'm not quite there.
You will one day. You'll certainly feel like it. Can I get a motion to go in camera, please? Okay, Councillor Coleman, Councillor LaFerriere, all in favor? Okay, and we will give the members of the gallery a couple